Hi guys, Yuki here, back with Seduce Me 2, The Demon War, Sam's Route Part 3. So we just finished up fighting with Sergeant, and yeah, might have flipped it a little bit, but it's because I had, okay, I'm just making a lot of excuses, but still, it's like, that was not fair at all, so I'm just, now that that's done and over with, I'm gonna try to keep it not, I guess, cheap, even though I didn't really cheat, it's just kind of did a redo. But yeah, I slowly made my way into the room and sat back onto the bed, letting the rush of exhaustion run through me like a wave of water. I shut my eyes and fell back onto the mattress with a soft thud. We were a handful of days away, and I wasn't sure how we were going to handle it, now that we were apparently being tested on top of it.
You have nothing to fear from me, child.
I didn't even have the strength to care or sit back up. I let out a sigh and continued to stare at the ceiling, greeting the voice in my head with a grimace. Why are you doing this? Why not just test him yourself?
One cannot be tested if they are not ready for the consequences.
So basically, if he wants to be the Demon Lord, he's gonna have to sacrifice me. That sounds pretty, I don't know, like, the running thing for most of the game. Sacrifice myself for Damien, sacrifice... Wait, did James sacrifice himself for me? Yes, and kind of, but not really. And then with Eric, kind of, yeah. That got me to sit up. I looked to the fireplace, remembering the dream I had of Sam being burnt alive. A shudder ran through my spine as a voice chuckled.
You know what will happen if he is not worthy of my power.
Then what's the point of having this all power if it's just gonna end up with somebody dying? Well, someone you love dying. But why must he take it?
He wishes to kill the abomination demon lord, correct?
My anger flared. How was this being so high and mighty of himself? What? Diana and Sarah seemed to respect him for his power, but if he was so powerful, then why wasn't he here himself testing Sam? The voice answered my thought.
I am bound to the dark, as I have always been for eons.
Eons? So he's like really old.
Yes, child. My kind and I have lived within the depths of the abyssal plains ever since the dawn of time, feeding off of the ashes of the dead and granting the world above us peace.
Yeah, you still creep me a little bit. Peace? Was the being some kind of underground creature? How is it able to communicate through fire then?
We are all powerful, child. Should we desire it, we could bring the world to its knees and drown it in endless flame.
I'm tired of you speaking in riddles. From the power behind his voice, I could tell that he was telling the truth. A violent shiver ran up my spine as I imagined the castle and the land around us completely covered in flames. The voice, however, continued.
Fear not, however. We care little for the world above.
Then why get involved now with the Demon Lord? Exactly.
The Demon Lord is a mad abomination undeserving of the power of the demon world. For what is to come, he must be eliminated.
What do you mean, what's to come?
Talking to the voice.
Oh my god, come on, Sam. Don't. No. I didn't. I quickly looked to the door to see Sam staring at me intensely. What surprised me was that he was in his demon form. I can only assume his glamour spells vanished from how much energy had been used in training. I nodded and looked to the fire. The voice was telling me about itself. It apparently lives beneath the demon world. I hoped that Sam knew what it was. Whatever the thing was, it seemed to think itself as the most powerful being in the world, which I couldn't verify if it was unknown to me. Sam, however, cocked an eyebrow.
So it's a dragon.
Oh. Wait. What? I shot my head at Sam, both confused and thrown off at the answer. A dragon? A dragon? When did this become part of the list of demons in the world? How were dragons even remotely related to demons? Sam stared at my face and laughed before walking over and ruffling my hair.
What? You didn't think they were real?
No. No, I mean, anything's possible at this rate, but a dragon? How is that even possible? The voice in my head laughed at my surprise, but what shocked me was that Sam reacted as well to the laughter, looking around the room in shock.
The fuck?
I'm not crazy. Well, I knew that from the while now, but still.
I am surprised that you know of what I am. Oh, Maurice.
Call me Sam.
Yeah.
You choose to acknowledge your human name.
It's humanity that keeps him in check. No, I don't know.
Yeah, I do. Got a problem with that?
You become more interesting to me every day that passes, Sam.
Thanks. Now why the fuck are you testing me?
Do you wish to kill the Demon Lord?
I watched as a flash of rage rushed across Sam's eyes as he nodded, pinning his gaze to the fire before us and seeing the same eyes I had seen before appear within the flames.
Yeah, I do.
Then I will grant you my power, if you are worthy to take it.
What? If I'm worthy? What's that supposed to mean?
The voice ignored Sam and focused his attention to me.
Child, you should prepare for tomorrow. You will be tested as well.
Me? I stared into the fire, now slightly afraid of what test this thing had in store for me. Would it have Diana disguise herself as Sam? Could Diana even do that? I didn't want to assume that it would be the same trick twice. The possibilities were endless. I shook my head and took a breath. I had to be strong and show that I wasn't afraid. All right, I'll be ready.
Such confidence for a human.
With that, the eyes vanished from the flames, and Sam looked to me, wrapping an arm around my shoulders.
You alright?
No. I was nervous. There was no way I could have been alright. I didn't know what was planned for me, what I had expected to do. I shook my head, looking to the ground. I don't know what it would want from me. Sam grimaced and wrapped his arms around me.
Hey, you'll be fine. I'm sure you can pass whatever it's planning, no problem.
I hope so. I nodded softly. I had to breathe. Everything would be okay. As I took a deep breath, I took a moment to take in that Sam was still in demon form. I chuckled a bit and touched his horns, which I found hilarious as they protruded from the side of his head like handlebars. Okay? Remember what happened last time? With Diana? I'm hoping that's not the same. I'm never going to get used to you in this form.
Huh? Oh, shit! I forgot to turn back! Sorry!
I stared at Sam as he stepped back and looked down at his form in surprise. As he rode the back of his head, I could see the comfort he had in what was his true form. While it wasn't totally different from his human form, he still had horns and the incubus taint on his skin. Sam shook his head and began to charge his energy.
I'll change back.
You don't have to if you don't want to. Stop him. Sam was comfortable in that form. If he was exhausted, then he didn't have to use more energy to glamour himself. I held out my hand and walked over, placing it on his chest and stopping him.
Huh?
Don't worry about it. You don't have to. Sam stared for the longest time before smiling and nodding. I was happy to know that he was considerate enough to consider my feelings, but if he was happy in his true form, then I didn't mind sleeping beside it. As I looked at him, though, a dangerous curiosity crept over me. Had never really thought of making love to him in this form. In his human form, absolutely, but not with him as the demon he truly was. Would it be different than what I expected? Would it be exactly as I imagined it? I bit my lower lip, letting the curiosity fester in my mind a bit.
Huh? What's with the look?
I don't know. I didn't notice the expression my face was making as I stared at Sam's body, causing me to jerk my gaze up into Sam's eyes and shake my head. Huh? Nothing.
Nothing, huh?
Sam slowly began to suck towards me, forcing me to step back and eventually lean against the wall, with him placing his arms on either sides of my head. I was trapped and could only stare up at my captor.
I think you're staring at me and thinking bad things.
I felt my heart rush into my throat and silence me as I gazed into Sam's emerald eyes, which oh so slightly dilated into a small form of lust. Now I've done it. Sam chuckled and leaned in close, touching his nose to mine.
So, you gonna tell me the truth?
Take initiative? Sam thought he had the upper hand, however I knew how to make him go crazy. I leaned forward and locked lips with him, making him gasp against my mouth. I slightly wrapped my arms around his neck and pulled him close, letting him know that he was right and that he had better make good on my thoughts. Okay then. Sam pushed forward, groaning softly and pinning me to the wall with his body. I felt my hands roam his skin. It was so strange. There was no difference in texture of Sam's green marks from his skin, almost as if the marks were part of his physical, nude appearance. Still, I could feel the power Sam carried just from touch and passion alone. Sam was definitely strong, and he only reaffirmed my mental assessment as he gripped onto my hips and lifted me up higher on the wall and made me wrap my legs around him. Unconsciously, I gripped onto his horns, causing him to growl almost animalistically, against my lips, making me gasp at the sound. I stared wide-eyed at Sam, seeing his eyes glow slightly. Did I hurt you? No?
No.
I became lost in his eyes as they began to deeply enthrall me. The small ring of green around his lustful blown pupils glowing gold as the spell took hold. I released a heavy moan from gripping his horns hard and pulling him back to me for a kiss. His kisses became eager and wild, like grabbing hold of his horns was a turn-on for him. Was it? I think we established that when we were with Diana. It was really awkward. Sam zipped us back to the bed with his inhuman speed and settled himself with me in his lap and him sitting against the bedposts. His hands began to wander along my body, trying to control themselves from simply tearing through the fabric dividing us. Okay then. Whoa! What just happened? That was so weird! Unless that was the point? In my own desire and need, I quickly forced myself away from Sam's lips and touched my nose to his, staring deep into his eyes as I began to undo every bit of clothing and strip them off of me before tossing them who knew where. Wow. Thankfully he was already there for me, so there was one less outfit in our way. As I finally became fully bare above him, Sam wrapped his hands around my waist and adjusted himself to kneel on his knees. Me straddled over him. We didn't even need a plate to know that this was going to be a rough ride. Okay. Double meanings. I I settled my hands back on Sam's horns, my lustful eyes burning into his as he guided me and smirked a toothy grin at me.
You better hang on.
This is awkward. As my entire body became wretched with ecstasy, I couldn't stop the loud and wild moan from escaping my body or from my eyes rolling back in wild euphoria. My world rocked with waves and pulses of pleasure and desire. The room around us, the smell of sweat in the air, it all became irrelevant as I made hard love to the man beneath me, clinging to his horns like handlebars. It's so awkward. The harder we went, the louder we became. My vision was blurred in pure ecstasy, and I could feel nothing but the pleasure rushing through me and Sam's horn within my grasp. Soon the entire room almost quaked with the sound of our passion. As we peaked, we released a simultaneous scream and howl of carnal euphoria before wrapping our arms around each other and panting wildly. The sweat between us tingled with the heat in the air, making us shiver in each other's arms. I was in utter bliss, and Sam soothed me and held me close as he very slowly tucked us beneath the bedsheets and held me close to him, allowing me to recover from the experience. Oh, wow. Wow. Demon style was definitely a new experience. I cuddled into Sam's embrace, nuzzling his chest and almost purring happily at the warmth that emanated from it. Sam kissed my head and chuckled.
You alright?
I could only nod before feeling myself pass out. Sam soon followed after, both of us becoming lost in the dark void of slumber. Could be awkward if anybody walks in on us in the morning. I had to be ready for the trial. I half expected to wake up to Diana to be disguised as Sam as the morning came. However, as I woke, I was happily in the arms of the man I loved. Despite the tired fog over my vision, I could sense that the man who was holding me was the true Sam. The way he held me gave it all away. And as he pulled my body close to him, I giggled, knowing Sam was awake. I know you're awake.
No, you don't, you doofus.
I laughed and kissed his nose softly, causing Sam to open his eyes. As he gazed into my eyes and smiled, I felt my heart completely swell in joy. I had almost forgotten about the day ahead. All I wanted to do was stay in bed with him a little longer.
Morning.
Morning. Sam lazily leaned forward and kissed me before pulling me to his chest and sitting us both up.
Come on. Time to get up.
Do we have to? As I asked, I could sense a new determination from Sam. Something about him seemed confident despite having just woken up. I tilted my head and placed my hands on his shoulders, curious as to why that was. Hey, what's got you so energized? Well, he basically took our energy last night, so eh. Sam turned his head and looked in my direction, giving me a surprised look himself.
Huh? What do you mean? I'm always energized.
Well, that's good to hear.
Yeah. Sam and I looked over at the door, suddenly to see Diana leaning against the archway, holding 2 large plates of food. I was surprised she was able to carry them. Both plates were piled with food that looked absolutely delicious. Sam and I practically salivated at the sight before Sam shook his head and glared at Diana.
You ever learn how to knock?
Well, we have a lot to do, so I figured knocking would only waste precious time. My apologies.
Diana walked over at last and handed us our plates before stepping back and crossing her arms. Sam began to chow down as I took the slower approach to eating, but I was given with a laugh.
So, are you prepared for your test, dear?
That made me stop and look up at Diana. She knew that I was next. She already devoted herself to the dragon before, so it wasn't surprising, but maybe she knew what exactly was in store for me. I couldn't be sure. Do you know what my test is? Well, she does know, but she's not going to tell us, because then it won't be a test. Diana nodded as Sam looked up to see her answer. I gulped, now a bit worried. Can you tell me?
Unfortunately, no. I cannot. If I could, I would, dear.
I grimaced, looking at the fireplace and knowing that the dragon was probably watching. I half expected him to answer for Diana, but he didn't speak. My mind began to fill with ideas of what it could be about. What was I going to be tested on? How was it going to go down? Would I have to fight? All of the possibilities lingered in my thoughts as Sam finished his food.
Hey.
I looked to Sam, feeling him rub my back gently with his strong hand. I felt some comfort in the gesture and more from the smile on his face.
You'll be fine. I believe in you.
Ah, kiss him. I was happy to know that Sam believed in me and supported me. I gave him a loving peck on his lips, causing him to stare wide-eyed with a blush. I had a giggle at the sight while Diana rolled her eyes and let out a groan. Diana, however, looked to the fireplace. Am I gonna have to basically go into the fireplace?
I will say this, though. It should be easy for you.
For me? Huh? It should be easy? Diana nodded before turning around and looking over her shoulder to maintain eye contact with me.
Yes, that is, if you believe in your love.
I knew it. I stared wide-eyed at Diana before she turned and walked away, leaving me and Sam alone. I grew curious and concerned, but I had to let it go for now. The test was apparently tonight, so I had to wait. I expected today's trainings to be full of fighting and brawling, just like the last time. However, as I left the castle, I spotted Sergeant sitting on the ground, looking down at a bowl that had multiple lit sticks of incense burning in it. Are we going to learn how to meditate? The colors seemed to mesh into the smoke and rise from their lit ends, blending to a dull gray color before fading into the air. It was almost mystical to watch. As I walked towards Sergeant, I noticed that he seemed entranced by the lit incense bowl, focused on the smoke emanating from it. What had him entranced? Not wishing to disturb him, I stopped to the other side of the bowl, sitting down very slowly and looking into the bowl as well. The incense sticks had different scents that occasionally clashed or blended together in harmony. I could barely make out each earthy tone and every spice that smells emitted. Just letting the scents filter into my nose made me slightly dizzy. What was this?
Men's itinerary.
Okay, is that a spell? Huh?
It's a test. Every brute demon goes through it when they are ready to be an adult. Mostly, female brutes do it before they become hunters, and males do it before they become guardians.
Oh. I looked to Sergeant as he finally turned his eyes to look back at me. He had a stern look in his eyes, which made me nervous. What did this test have in store?
Only those who can master their rage will live through this test.
Well, I'm gonna die. There was the rub. I became a little panicked. It had only been 2 days of training. How was I going to be able to pass this test, whatever it was, and live? As Sergeant saw the fear obviously stretched in my expression, he glared harder.
Are you doubting yourself already?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. It's only been 2 days. Of course I was doubting myself. Who wouldn't be? There was no way I could be ready for this. Sergeant shook his head and let out a sigh.
If you're not sure, then don't bother. Just
Damn
leave.
it!
I'm not going to waste my time.
His words stung, but I knew that he was serious. This was my chance to show him that and myself that I was strong enough to protect myself, at least for this war. I just needed to swallow my fear and do as he said. But what if I wasn't ready? What if this test proved to be fatal? What if I died without having a chance to survive? I didn't know what I was walking into. But I'm gonna do it. I had to. Try. I had to try. Achievement unlocked. Men's Itinerary. I had to try. I had to. If this was going to help me, then I had to do my best. I looked at Sergeant once more and shook off the fear from my expression, showing him that I was ready. Sergeant grinned a bit before gathering some dirt in his hand and tossing it over the bowl and incense. As the dirt collided into the bowl, a red flash sparked and burst from it, causing me to shut my eyes to block the visual impact. After a second, I opened my eyes again to see what had happened. A large red flame stood in the mouth of the bowl, dissolving the incense into it and leaving nothing but the licking tongues of the fire. It seemed to burn immensely, not showing any signs of dying.
Reach into the flame and touch the bottom of the bowl with 2 fingers.
Oh. Yep, I thought so. Could burn myself. I took a moment to absorb what he said. My thoughts instantly wanted to say no, but something told me it was something I could do without getting hurt. With a breath, I slowly lifted my hand and stretched towards the fire, feeling the heat grow against my skin as the distance shortened. My fingertips barely caressed the flame before I almost violently pushed my hand forward. To my surprise, I felt no pain from the action, watching the fire dance around my skin, but only feeling its warmth. I let out a soft, shaky sigh before continuing forward and touching the bottom of the bowl with my fingers. I could barely feel an ooze-like texture around my nails and fingertips, but I kept focusing on following Sergeant's instructions.
You're not going to go through the full test. As a human, you wouldn't survive. You'll be getting a small taste of it, enough to show me that you're strong enough to defend yourself.
Oh. I nodded in understanding. Sergeant continued.
What you're about to taste is fucking disgusting, but you will not spit any of it out. Understand?
Oh, well, I'm gonna... Well... Poison? I nodded again.
Good. Now take your hand out of the flame.
I obeyed and watched as my hand emerged from the flame with ease. Covering my fingertips was a blood-colored liquid slowly dribbling down my fingers and onto my palm and knuckles. I stared at it, trying not to let my mind overthink what I was about to do.
When you're ready, put your fingers in your mouth and swallow that mixture.
My mind began to fight. What was I doing? This was getting really odd. However, as my thoughts tried to assemble reasons why this was wrong, my senses became overwhelmed. What? The air around me tightened. Suddenly the ground began to shift and rumble, almost like I was sitting on a waterbed. I felt my nerves dancing and wriggling beneath my skin, making me slightly nauseous. Was the smell getting to me? The only description I could coherently think of was that I felt like I was getting high. My mind was slowly numbing and my body was rocking at the sensations coursing through it. I had to hurry. I instantly put my fingers in my mouth and quickly began to clean the concoction off my fingers with my tongue. Sergeant was right. The taste was absolutely vomit-worthy. It was a mixture of ash and burnt mold. If I could imagine actually trying it, the taste was like eating a wad of aged cigarettes. However, I shut my eyes and barreled through the taste, making sure to swallow it down. I could feel the effects of the concoction fuse and spread through my mouth and throat, zipping through my nerves and body. It was like eating fire. As I opened my eyes, however, I was no longer in the training grounds, but in a purple forest. I looked around, confused and lost as to what was going on, and the trees swayed and shifted like apparitions. What was happening to me? I slowly stood and looked around, trying to take everything in. This was completely new, and I found myself becoming frightened. Where was I? My body suddenly began to shiver at the sound of the familiar voice. I turned my head to look, and froze at the sight of who was in space with me. The Demon Lord or Sergeant? The Demon Lord. Standing before me was the Demon Lord, mighty and terrifying as I imagined him to be up close. His face was dark and menacing as he gazed into my soul. His teeth were even more horrifying as he bared them at me animalistically. However, I could hear Sergeant's voice echo in the space.
Your test stands before you, human. The one standing in the way from you going home is the fuckface known as the Demon Lord.
At the mere mention of his name, I became furious. This was a monster that was keeping me from going home. This was the bastard who wanted to hurt me and bring the boys back here, most likely to punish them or force them to take the throne. Actually, I think by now he's probably just wants to kill them.
Now, beat him down!
I felt instant fury ignite within my core, making waves of rage and anger run through each vein in my body. My muscles tensed and my fists were ready to fly at my opponent. The time had come to prove myself. The Demon Lord came quickly, swinging, arcing a large blade in my direction. I swiftly dodged and quickly began to assess the situation. He was armed and he was as muscular as Sergeant, if not more. Another swing, another dodge. However, in this realm, I could barely make out the black aura around the Demon Lord's body. Most likely the test was crafted not to allow me to see the weakness and energy in my opponent. Smart. I had to adjust and use my visible sight. There had to be something. His weapon was exceedingly perfect and his grip seemed to be protected as well. I jumped away as the Demon Lord lunged at me, swinging his blade at me to slice me in half. He had a weapon. I did not. He was built. I was not. How was I going to do this? The situation slowly began to dawn on me, causing the fury in my body to lightly shudder in weakness. Was I even ready to do this? My mind began to flicker through images of my family, my friends, my fiancé. I was fighting for them. I was fighting for me, my freedom, my own need of revenge. I I had to knock away my doubt in my mind and remind myself why I was here. It was all because of him. I quickly ran at the Demon Lord, my vision becoming as red as blood. As the Demon Lord prepared to stance, I raised my leg and knocked it against his elbow, bending it in the opposite direction and forcing him to drop his weapon. With a hateful snarl, the Demon Lord raised a fist of his own and rammed it into my cheek, causing me to fly back and skid across the ground. Despite the pain, I quickly scrambled back onto my feet, eyeing him with a deadly glare. I had to win this. I felt my hand pulse, tensing and becoming solid as rock at my side. Blood dripped from the side of my mouth, but I didn't care. I was going to end this. With a final battle cry, I rushed forward and raised my fist behind me, ready to slam it into the Demon Lord's face. My fist was met with his, causing us both to deadlock fist to fist. Fire and electricity bounced between our hands as we pushed against each other. I snarled and let out my rage fuel into each finger, forcing his fist back. I didn't want to lose. I wasn't going to lose. I was going to beat him down and win this fight. The Demon Lord's fist tried to push back, but failed as I pressed forward, knocking his fist away from us and leaving him open. At last, I let out an angry yell and brought my arm back and slammed it onto his face hard. I stared as his face seemed to mold over my fist at the impact before he rebounded off of it and fell to the floor. This illusion was much weaker than the real Demon Lord, but I didn't give a damn. This thing was going to feel the anger I had stored in my body. I jumped onto his chest, pinning his arms to his side with my knees and began to pummel his face with my fists over and over. Soon enough, his face became unrecognizable and covered in blood. Oh, we went Diana on his butt. As it occurred, however, I barely noticed the world around me slowly change back to normal. It was only until the body below me turned into a training dummy that I had to let it sink in hard. What? The rage within my body became quickly extinguished as I stared at the broken straw and cloth beneath my body. Small scratches decorated my fist from the friction of the dummy, and I became lost as ever. I was fighting the Demon Lord. How did it become a dummy? At the sound of a slow applause, I turned my head to see Sergeant with a smirk on his face, clapping an apparent job well done. Okay.
I gotta admit, I'm impressed. You're probably the first human to pass that test.
I'm probably the only human who's actually done this test. It took a moment to sink in. I was in the midst of a test and I had passed? Just like that? I became extremely proud of myself, feeling utter joy rush through my body and causing me to jump up. Yeah! Alright! Sergeant laughed as I pumped my fist into the air in pride.
Don't overwork yourself, or...
Boom. Right? I barely heard him finish his sentence as I suddenly became dizzy and collapsed to the ground, immediately worn out.
What the hell did you do?
Oh my god. I feel sorry for you, Sergeant. You're gonna get so much trouble with Diana.
I was training her.
And that requires a means ingenere?
Are you judging my training methods?
I'm judging your common sense!
I could barely understand what was going on around me before I opened my eyes. Despite my vision being blurred, I could see Diana above me, feeling her knees beneath my head and Sergeant on the other side, arms crossed. Diana's hands was petting through my hair, where I felt waves of light energy pass over my head and into the rest of my body. It felt calming and comforting after using so much rage energy, and I had to hold back a moment from escaping me. As my vision began to clear up, I could see Diane and Sergeant scowling at each other.
She is a human. That kind of mental exertion could have killed her.
She lived.
Barely!
I could barely open my mouth before Diana gently lowered my head to the ground and stood up, walking around my body and marching at Sergeant.
That was an unforgivably reckless choice. How am I supposed to trust you with an army if I can't trust you to take care of one human?
Watch it, Succubus. I trained our men well.
It doesn't mean anything if you don't have the sense to see the error of this choice!
Suddenly, Sergeant swung a fist towards Diana, only to be blocked by her forearm with insane reaction speed. Barely a second that passed as a dark purple flame engulfed Diana's free hand while it rammed into Sergeant's stomach. Aww. Before my eyes, Sergeant was sent flying back and slammed into a tree, falling at its base. Diana, however, became engulfed with black and purple flame, as the scowl on her face contorted into one I recognized from the human world.
How dare you attack me! I am the one who honored your people, and you have the gall to turn and strike at me! Where does your loyalty lie?
What the hell? What was happening?
You truly thought you could hurt me. I've been fighting the Demon Lord himself for over 10 years. You're nothing compared to him.
Sergeant looked up at Diana with a pained glare of his own as Diana turned and took a single step away from him.
I will overlook that act of treason this once, but know your place, brute.
As Diana's face turned away from Sergeant, I could see a look of change in Diana's eyes, going from pure arrogance to sudden realization and regret. However, she shut her eyes and let out a silent sigh as she took another step away from us. With that, Diana walked away, her flame-like aura completely gone from her body. Sergeant, however, didn't move and simply watched until she entered the castle and vanished from sight. As she did, Sergeant let out a sigh. I slowly sat up, taking in what had happened. What was wrong with Diana? Why did she act like that? What was Sergeant so on the offensive? I looked over at my trainer to see him slowly stand. As I did, I noticed a heavily burnt mark where Diana had punched him. Oh, wait. Oh, no, there's nothing there. Are you okay?
I'll be fine.
I could tell that Diana had gotten under her skin. I was concerned as to why Diana acted that way. But as Sergeant stood and shook his head, he looked at me.
You alright?
I nodded, feeling much better than I had before. Diana's magic must have healed me from whatever the test's effects were. I quickly stood up and grinned. So, what now? Sergeant took a moment to look at me, but I knew that I had to take his mind off of Diana to get back into proper training. I wasn't mad at him about the test. It gave me a good punching bag. He then let out a small laugh and uncrossed his arms.
You should have been born a demon. You've got the will to be one.
Oh. I couldn't help but feel flattered at the compliment. As I smiled, Sergeant walked over to the dummy I was beating on earlier and set it up.
You proved yourself by passing the test. Now, we'll take the time to master what skills you have.
As long as I don't have to do anything, because I suck at reaction times. I walked over and stood in front of the dummy, ready for his instructions. I was able to defend myself and fight, and that was the goal of this entire process. I spent the rest of the day sparring the dummy, Dantalier, and even Sergeant himself to sharpen my skills and make them better. I was completely exhausted by the time I was sent back to my room, but I had one more test to do before this, so... Wait. Okay, I can still do some more. 37 minutes. As I marched back to my room, I was stopped by Sam. I stared at him as he leaned against the door of our room, as if he had been waiting for me a while.
Hey.
Hey. I knew that this could only mean one thing. My test was waiting for me. I pressed my lips together, nervous, but knowing that I had to get through it regardless of how I felt. Diana's words began to flood back into my mind as I took Sam's hand and gave it a squeeze. Sam squeezed my hand back, nodding, and led me away from our bedroom towards the war room where Diana was waiting for us. As Diana locked her sights on us, she let out a sigh and gestured to the table, where a large conglomerate of items were placed and presented. Sam halted his stop, staring at the table in absolute shock. I, however, merely grew confused. On the table was an assortment of single flowers, each of a single color, different color and type. They were formed in a magical circle pattern, but there was no magic to be seen.
When did you...
Hush, this is for her.
Sam instantly shut his mouth as I looked to Sam in confusion. Am I going to be bound to him? He knew that what this was? I turned to Diana, completely lost.
Dear, do you know what I've prepared here?
I stared at the table, unsure how to discern it. A couple of ideas came to mind, but I didn't want to be wrong if this was part of the test. Sam knew what it was too, given the strong reaction from him. Could it have been a demon marriage ritual? That was it. It had to be it. Why else would Sam react so strangely? It had been on his mind, and now it was staring me dead in the face. Diana nodded, gesturing to the flowers.
This is a marriage ritual. Freshly blossomed flowers, holding peak-worthy magical essence, arranged in a magic circle, are part of what a binding ritual needs to happen.
Part? Diana nodded and looked at the table.
The other part is a precious item forged between two souls to bind them together.
I couldn't believe it. This was my test? There was no way I was ready for this, but here I was, staring at a setup that just screamed, "Go through with it!" Part of me was angry and aggravated. I had to go through this for just some stupid dragon's power? This was something Sam and I were supposed to discuss together. Now it felt like it was an arranged agreement. What was I going to do? The test was obviously going to make me go through with this for the sake of Sam, but I still wasn't ready. Soul binding seemed very heavy, and as much as I love Sam, I need to be 100% clear. Sam stepped forward and glared at Diana.
We're not doing this.
Pardon?
You heard me. We're not going through with this.
I stared at Sam, wide-eyed. What? He didn't want to go through it anymore? What was going on? I remembered clear that he wanted to do it. Now he was going against it? Sam looked at me and I could suddenly see the reason why buried in his eyes. He still wanted to, but not like this. I could tell he was throwing away something he desperately wanted for my own sake. Sam. Sam turned and grasped my shoulder, staring into my eyes.
I know that I want to do this. I want to do this more than anything. But you are more important to me than some dumb ritual. I will never let you force yourself to make this decision if you're nowhere near ready.
Oh man, I don't know. I felt like crying. This was exactly why I loved him. There was one of a million reasons why Sam was so important to me. My heart felt at ease, looking into his eyes and letting rogue tears roll down my cheeks. It may have been seen like a simple thing, but to me this was important. I gently caressed Sam's cheek, feeling the warmth of his skin beneath my hand, and thinking every deity I knew that I had him beside me as mine. However, as Diana cleared her throat, we both turned to her in reaction. What really threw us off was seeing her cover her mouth, hiding some sort of smirk that was peeking out between her fingers.
Who said anything about you going through with it?
What? Sam and I became dumbfounded. What? We didn't have to go through with it? Then why was it all set up?
For fuck's sake, if you're messing with us...
Diana began to laugh hysterically, causing Sam to stop talking and become dumbfounded once again. What the hell was going on?
I knew it! I knew it!
What the fuck, Diana?!
Okay! I was beyond lost. As Diana continued to laugh, she curled over her stomach and covered her face, trying to catch her breath.
This was perfect! This was absolutely perfect!
Diana, what's going on? Now I was becoming frustrated. What was so funny about this? That was a test? Diana finally stopped laughing, wiping her eyes from the tears that had formed from laughing so hard, and she grinned at me and Sam.
I didn't set this up to make you two do it. That would ruin the point of the test.
Then what is the test? I became flustered and I mentally scrambled as to what was going on. As my body suddenly began to sink into the ground, however, I gasped and looked down, seeing a large purple pentagram pulling me and Sam into the floor.
Whoa!
I don't know.
Demon marriage lets you know where your soul partner is at all times. The test is that you find your husband without it.
Oh. I couldn't even fight back as I was engulfed by darkness at last. I couldn't tell how long I was trapped in the darkness. All I knew was that I was going to wake up and find Sam. As I opened my eyes, I had to adjust to the bright light around me and the sound of nature in my ears. I rubbed my eyes and found myself in a forest laying beneath a large tree with burn marks across its bark. I could tell that this would be my starting place and my marker if I got lost. So while I felt terrible for the tree, I was thankful to have something to visually reference. So this was my test. I had to find the man I loved without anything but my heart and my instincts. This was cheesy as hell, expecting someone to find someone else using the power of love. I loved Sam deeply, but I didn't know if it would be strong enough to guide me through a terrain I was unaware of to Sam, who could also have been wandering around looking for me. There were so many variables to consider. Still, this was a test for a reason, and I had to figure this out. I cut my hands together and shouted, knowing his name would be a way to bring him to me. Oh, Maris! Or Maris, I don't know, however you want to say it. The nearby birds around me fluttered wildly in the air in surprise of my shout, but Sam didn't appear. What the hell? That was supposed to have worked! Something must have had him under holy magic or something to negate the demon summoning. Another part of the test. Guess I wasn't allowed to cheat. It was worth a try. Calm down. I had to be methodical about this. There was no use in panicking over the situation. The forest couldn't be that big, could it? I shook my head. Nope, I had to find him, and it was the last thing I could do. This was the only way to get the dragon's power, as difficult and unnecessary as it was. I took in a deep breath and looked around, trying to decide where to start. I started heading to the left of the tree's burn marks. It was better than no direction at all, and it was a start. Each step I took became one filled with haste. I wanted to find Sam soon, and I didn't want to laze about it. It felt like hours went by until I stopped and looked around, exhausted from walking so far at such a fast pace. I leaned against a nearby tree, catching my breath. How the hell am I going to find him? Something in my heart began to feel heavy. What if I wasn't going to be able to find him? What if this was an impossible quest? I felt my body slide down to the side of the tree, making me sit down at the base in fear. This couldn't be. Sadness and ache began to consume my thoughts. There was no way to track him, no way to find him at all in this place. I'd be searching forever, only hoping that I would find him and pray that he was alive when I did. My hands combed through my hair as I fought back tears. Please let me wake up if this was a dream. Please let me see him again.
Giving up so soon, my dear?
No! At Diana's voice, I suddenly gasped and looked up, only to find no one around. I quickly stood and scanned the area, but alas, there was only trees around. Diana, I don't know what to do. How can I find him?
You have all of the means to find him. You're just not thinking it through.
I looked into the air, confused as ever. What did she mean? I didn't have anything but the clothes I was wearing. Diana chuckled slightly.
Think. Besides his heart, what else did he give you as a token of his love?
His necklace? A ring? I don't know. As she said it, the answer came into my mind, replaying the night Sam proposed to me in the night sky. Oh wait! Oh yeah! That thing! Yeah. I looked to my hand, seeing the engagement ring and Sam had given me resting on my finger, glistening in the light. But also, like, underneath that is the actual, like, binding thingy, ring thing around my finger.
There we are. The other part of the marriage ritual.
Second part? This was...
Indeed. It seems he intended to ask you to be his, in body, heart, and spirit.
My heart gave a hard and heated thump against my chest, agreeing with Diana's words. He had been prepared all along to ask me to be his, but wanted to at least give me what I wanted first before asking me for what he wanted. I smiled, staring at the sparkling emeralds and diamonds on my ring and finally feeling the magic pulse within it. Still, I was lost on how to use it. How will this help me? Diana chuckled once more, her voice quieter than before.
I can't give you all of the answers, dear. But at least you won't be lost anymore.
Her voice finally vanished into the air, leaving me alone once more. However, my focus was on my ring, remembering clearly that this wasn't an ordinary ring, but one magically forged the night Sam proposed. Sam, I'm going to find you. And that's where we're going to be stopping for today. I know, I'm so evil. But I'm hoping for the best. I don't know if we'll be ending in the 4th or 5th part, but at least we're making progress. So anyways, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye!